Hey, how are you? Can you hear me? Huh? Oh. Well, I hate to interrupt, but you may have to continue your fellowship after class. It's about 2 minutes after. So, time to get started today. So I know talking about these characters and these things that are happening. I know you've studied these since you were a kid, most of us, and so I know it can be kind of boring. So just bear with me because I'm trying to establish some things so that when we get to the end, we can talk about how it applies to us. And one of the things I'm trying to establish is that faith means more than just believing that God exists. And that the people that God used to fulfill His plans and His promises were flawed people. And that God's plans are over a long period of time. And finally, that God is always going to keep His promises. Regardless of how big or how small, God is going to keep His promises. Today we're going to start in Exodus chapter 12. Remember when we ended last time? We were talking about the final plague with Egypt. And the final plague was what? Death of the firstborn of Egypt. That included children and cattle. So, death of all the firstborn in Israel. In Egypt. I do that stuff all the time. So when I do that, you all tell me because I do it all the time. So today we're going to start in Exodus chapter 12. And I'm going to read the first 13 and 14 verses. Now the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall be a beginning of months for you. It is to be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month they are each one to take a lamb for themselves according to their father's households, a lamb for each household. Now if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his neighbor nearest to his house are to take one according to the number of persons in them, according to what each man should eat. you are to divide the lamb. Your lamb shall be an unblemished male, a year old. You may take it from the sheep or the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel is to kill it at twilight. Moreover, they shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel of the house in which they eat. They shall eat the flesh that same night, roasted with fire, and they shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled at all with water, but rather roasted with fire, both its head, its legs, along with its entrails. And you shall not leave any of it over until morning, but whatever is left of it until morning you shall burn with fire. Now you shall eat it in this manner, with your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night, and will strike down all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. And then in verse 14 it says, now this day will be a memorial to you, and you shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You are to celebrate it as a permanent ordinance. Okay, so they are to kill a lamb or a goat. They're to put the blood on the doorpost. And why are they going to do that? Why put the blood on the doorpost? So the death angel will pass over. So they will not lose their firstborn, right? And then he tells them that this is to be a memorial. And they're to do it for all generations. So just in general terms, what happened when the Israelites celebrated the feast of the Passover? Just in general terms. They remember. How did they remember?
They do the same things, basically. They would kill a lamb.
They would do the same things, and they would tell the story. They would pass down the story from generation to generation to generation. This is what happened. This is how we escaped slavery in Egypt. This is what the Lord did to get us out of bondage. Do we have a memorial today that we celebrate? Lord's Supper. And we do it every Sunday to remember. What is it we're trying to remember when we do this? Our Savior. Yeah, so they were passed over. The firstborn of their children would not die. And what is it that's getting passed over for us? Our sin is being overlooked, and we shall not experience the second death. Right? We will not be condemned because of that. So we remember that memorial.
I think it's important that we realize that their firstborn was protected, but God gave his firstborn.
God gave his firstborn. That's right. And we can go back to Abraham. Abraham was going to give up his only child, right? His his promised child. But God brought an offering instead of Isaac. He provided an offering so that Isaac didn't have to be killed. Christ came as an offering so that we don't have to suffer the second death, the condemnation. So it's all parallel. In verse 30, I should have told you that after last week, when we got home, Lori told me, I hate it when you're in a rush because the class is not as good. So I'm going to try not to be in a rush. I think I'll probably have a couple more weeks because I think Steve Grubbs is scheduled to teach after me. And, Steve's going to have open heart surgery, and he probably won't be ready for a while. So I have more time. But anyway, in verse 30, we find Pharaoh arose in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was no home where there was not someone dead. Then he called for Moses and Aaron at night and said, Rise up, get out from among my people, both you and the sons of Israel, and go and worship the Lord as you have said. Take both your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and go and bless me also. Verse 33, it says, The Egyptians urged the people to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We will all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, with their kneading bowls bound up and their clothes on their shoulders. Now the sons of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, for they had requested from the Egyptians articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have their request. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Now the sons of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, aside from children. So, I think I said 600. 600,000 men left Egypt. No wonder the Egyptians were worried that they would overthrow them. 600,000 people, that's men, just men. Not children and women, just men. So a big group of people that left Egypt. So, I've been in some deserts, not over there, but I've been in some deserts in the United States. I can't imagine looking out there and seeing 600,000, well, probably 1 million people. 1 million people walking in the desert. What?
Well, remember that there's probably a wife and 1 or 2 children with each one of the men, on average.
Yeah.
So you may have 2.4 million people.
Yeah. And animals, right? And animals. And they're leaving Egypt.
And they're taking all the goods. They're taking all not the bounty. They're taking the good stuff.
Yeah. Gold and silver. They're taking, it's almost as they have had a war and defeated the Egyptians and are taking the plunder away. Yeah. Here.
Put all this together, to me, when I've always studied this, it's boggling my mind in these areas, because from Genesis 11, when God promises Moses, this is the last plague upon the land of Egypt, and then what he's going to do. And then it's transferred over from Moses to telling the children of Israel, this is the first plague you all are going to be involved in, personally. If you want to escape death, show your faith by putting this sign on the doorpost. So when God comes by, he sees your faith, and he will spare your life. And so that's what they had to show. And this was then say, uh-oh, now what? Let's go back. Of course, it shows them that their faith was weak. They lost it, or they're not fully there. But, a million people God's just brought out of there. He said, I'm taking care of you. How large was that army in Egypt? Because already that whole city had been devastated, except for the army itself. And yet here, it must have been a massive one, of course. And yet, look what he did to that Egyptian army.
Yeah. Yeah, and two points. The promise of the plunder. God promised that they would have plunder to take with them. He kept that promise. They showed their faith by marking those posts, which is two of the objectives of this class. And we're going to see, as you alluded to, that it doesn't take long for them to start losing their confidence, their faith. It's very quick, and it lasts for a long time. Yes, Al?
I think it's interesting that not only the faith of the Israelites, but the Egyptians, from Pharaoh on down. Pharaoh at the end there says, he's telling them what to do, and bless me. I need to bless you. You killed my firstborn son. Bless me. And the Egyptian people, they were glad. Get rid of this stuff. You take whatever you want and go.
Yeah, as fast as you can.
Last night I lost my firstborn. What's going to happen tonight? Am I going to lose my secondborn? Go. Take what you want and go. I do not want this to happen again. Because they didn't know. What's the future hold for the Egyptian people? As long as you're here, obviously your God can do anything. So we believe.
Yeah,
Now go.
it took several plagues for them,
Well, I think it took the death.
for Pharaoh to believe, but eventually he believed, and he let them go. All right, so let's move on to, we're going to get over in Exodus 14. So Pharaoh and all the Egyptians are anxious to get rid of Israel. They send them on their way. Israel takes plunder. And then something interesting happens. I think Pharaoh's fear of the Lord kind of turns to anger. And Scripture tells us that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Okay, so God has one more plan to show the world, I am God. The only God. So he hardens Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh chases after the Israelites. And we're going to start reading in verse 15. So the Israelites see the Egyptians coming. And I don't know how big the army was, but I believe, you historians correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, the Egyptians were, at this time, it was one of the most powerful, advanced nations in the world. Isn't that correct? So they certainly had a big army. An army that could devastate a lot of people.
They had chariots.
And they had chariots, and they were trained soldiers. The Israelites certainly were not trained soldiers. So they look out and they see this army, and they're in fear. They're ready to go back. They're ready to go back in slavery. And we'll see this over and over and over and over again. Starting in verse 15. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it. And the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea on dry land. As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariots and his horsemen. The angel of God who had been going before the camp of Israel moved and went behind them, and a pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there was the cloud along with the darkness. Yet it gave light at night. Thus the one did not come near, and the other, thus one did not come near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord swept the sea back by a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land, so that the waters were divided. The sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea on dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Then the Egyptians took up pursuit, and all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. At the morning watch, the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud and brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. He caused their chariot wheels to swerve, and he made them drive with difficulty, so that the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots, and over their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horses and the horsemen. Even Pharaoh's entire army had gone into the sea after them. Not even one of them remained. But the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power which the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So, can you imagine what went out through the world after this happened? I mean, this was God showing the world, I am who I am. I am the one and the only God that created the world. And we see that God gives these kind of signs over and over again. It doesn't take long for the Israelites, even though they have seen all that they have seen, it doesn't take them long to lose faith. I mean, we see in Exodus chapter 16, they're hungry. They're hungry. They start complaining, moaning. What does God do?
Gives them food.
He gives them food. What does he give them?
Gives them manna and quail.
Manna and quail. Well, then they're thirsty. Okay, so what does God do then?
Gives them water.
He gives them water. Where does the water come from?
A rock.
Comes from a rock. Okay. Then in chapter 17, Israel complains about not having any water again. And this time, what does Moses do? What is Moses supposed to do? Supposed to speak to the rock to bring forth water. But what does Moses do? He hits the rock. Why? Why did he do that?
Who could be more frustrating than those people were?
I mean, he's frustrated. But that was a big mistake, wasn't it? A big mistake. So there are consequences in this world for things we do. We're going to see that when we talk about some other characters. So Moses is told, what is he told then? Because he lost his temper and he hits the rock, what is Moses told?
He'll see the promised land, but he'll not go into it.
Not only will he not enter the promised land, but nobody in that generation will enter the promised land. They will all die wandering in the wilderness. Except for two. Well, were they of that generation?
They were sent out to spy.
They were sent out to spy.
Yes, you can take them. So,
But when I think of Moses' generation, I think of Moses' age group. I think they were younger, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not an expert. Where are the Bible scholars? We don't have any. Where's Matthew?
It was still the head of the family.
He was still the head of the family? Okay.
The heads of the family.
Okay. Doesn't matter. There's a group of them that are not going to see the promised land, right?
Those that were over 20, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Joshua and Caleb were younger. Because they were young enough to be the spies going in 40 years later.
All right. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's a group that is not going to see the promised land. Exodus 20. Moses goes up to receive the 10 Commandments. And what stupid thing did the Israelites do while he was gone? Made an idol. Now, I mean, think about what they had seen. The things that they had seen God do, and yet they wanted to make an idol out of the gold that God provided them from the Egyptians. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Yes, Jim?
Well, you know, that's their story all throughout the Old Testament. You know, every time they turn around, I mean, you know, Isaiah over there, 49, 50, whatever it is, I mean, they just absolutely, he got tired of it. He told them they were stupid, you know, for not, you know, turn right around and go right back where they were at. Again, and again, and again, and again. That's where they did the whole time.
Yeah, and they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 34. So Moses goes up, he gets the 10 Commandments, comes down, they're worshiping an idol, having a crazy party. Moses, once again, gets angry, throws 10 Commandments down, has to go get the 10 Commandments again. And we're going to jump ahead. Lots of things happen, but we're going to jump ahead to Deuteronomy chapter 34, and I'm going to read 1 through 5. Now Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho, and the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, and Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, and the land of Judah as far as the western sea, and the Negev, and the plain and the valley of Jericho, and the city of palm trees as far as Zoar. And the Lord said, "This is the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not go over there." So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. So, once again, God promised Moses that he would see the promised land, but he wouldn't enter it. So God, once again, fulfills a promise. Now let's turn over to Joshua chapter 21. And I'm going to start reading verse 44. And the Lord gave them rest on every side according to all that he had sworn to their fathers. And no one of their enemies stood before them. The Lord gave all their enemies into their hand. Not one of the good promises which the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. All came to pass. So the Lord has fulfilled all his promises. Every one of them that he made to the people. And those people got those promises despite all the bad things that they had done and the times they turned their back on God. He still fulfilled his promise. Okay, let's talk a little bit. The time we've got left, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other characters in the Bible. Okay, and we're just going to talk in general terms. First one we're going to talk about is David. David was a perfect man, right? No? Why not? Well, I mean, David had faith, right? David had faith. I mean, you can't kill a giant without faith in God, particularly with a sling. He was a man after God's own heart. Absolutely. Scripture tells us that, right? But he was a what after God's own heart? A man. He was a man. Every man has weaknesses, right? David had a weakness, didn't he? At least one. That we know about. And what was that weakness? Bathsheba. One woman. One woman. David sees her, thinks she was bathing, right? And he sees her, and what happens? David is king, right? I mean, I can't comprehend, and I'm glad, I'm thankful I can't comprehend what it would be like to be king. Where you got people running around doing everything that you want. Even if they don't know you want it, they think you want it, they go take care of it for you, right? So, what happens? What does David do? He sees Bathsheba, what does he do? Has somebody go get her, right? They bring her to him, right? And he sins. She becomes pregnant. And who was her husband? Uriah. And what did Uriah do? He's a soldier, right? A good soldier, right? A loyal soldier. And so David is in a panic now. Have you ever done anything wrong and you're just in a panic thinking, oh, I know I'm going to get caught. I know I'm going to get caught. I mean, I can remember that when I was a kid and being so scared that I ran and told my parents because I was so afraid I was going to get caught anyway. I might as well get the spanking over with, right? But I did do this one thing one time. I've got time to tell you this story. So, this is kind of a funny, I think it's funny. You may not think so. So, I lived on a farm. We kept some hogs, pigs. Most of them were my grandfather's. And they had some baby pigs. And they had gotten up, I don't know, I know you can't see this, but about that tall. And one of my chores every day was to feed the cats. we didn't have pet cats. We had barn cats. Do you know what barn cats are? They eat those mice, keep them out of the corn crib and all that kind of stuff. But you don't dare try to pet one of those cats unless you want to have scratches all over and bites all over your hand. So my job was feed the cats. So I'd taken them some milk, and we had this stable next to the corn crib. And the door on that stable was about that tall, high above the ground. And we fed them the cats in an old tire that had been cut in two. Well, every time I'd feed them, those pigs would try to stick their noses in there and get that milk that the cats were supposed to have. Well, you know, I was this really good baseball player. So I thought, I'm going to fix you pigs. You know, pigs' noses are really, really tender. You know, if you kick one in the nose, it'll squeal like crazy. Well, I saw this 7-Up bottle, this glass 7-Up bottle over there. I decided I'm going to pick up that 7-Up bottle, and I'm going to hit one of those pigs in the nose. It'll squeal, and they'll all run away, and they won't do that anymore. So I drew back, and I threw that bottle, and I hit this pig right between the eyes. And that pig starts doing this. He's waddling around, and finally he just fell over. I mean, he just fell over flat on his side. And I thought, you stupid pig. So I go up, I pick that pig up and set him on his feet, move my hands, and he falls over. Well, I tried it one more time, and then I realized that pig is dead. What am I going to do? So I picked the pig up by the back feet, and I slung that pig as hard as I could up underneath the crib. And I went home. So you can imagine the rest of the day, I'm just in a panic, afraid somebody's going to find that pig. Well, that afternoon, I come out on the carport and I look and I see Mom and Dad coming back from the barn. And I'm just waiting there, you know, fretting. And Dad walks up to me and he says, anybody know what happened to that pig over there? And of course, then I started crying. Had to tell him that I'd killed the pig. And he said to me, how are you going to pay for that pig? So anyway, the point of that story is that when we do something wrong, even now, our conscience and the Holy Spirit start working on us, right? And they start working on us. And I've told that story, and I can't think of the reason I was telling that story. Why was I telling that story? Oh, David starts worrying about getting caught. So he comes up with this plan. His plan is, I'm going to send Uriah out to the front lines of battle. I'm going to have the commander withdraw all the troops. He will be killed. And that will, then we can say that is his chop instead of mine. So God sends somebody to tell David a story. Right? He sends somebody to tell the story about a lamb. Nathan the prophet comes in to tell David a story about a lamb. This poor man only has a lamb. And that's all he has. And he loves this lamb. And somebody steals it. And David gets furious. And he says, we need to have that man that stole that lamb killed. And Nathan looks at him and says, what? You are the man. We fear being told we are the man, right? I don't want to ever hear that from anybody. You are the man. Because David realized then, just as Moses realized back before, that his secret wasn't safe. So, what does David do? Janice, what does David do? Because he's a man after God's own heart.
Well, I can't remember in particular other than.
Well, he just asked for forgiveness. He asked for forgiveness. And he asked God that his son would not die.
God told him he was going to die.
But God, in fact, God told him not just that the son was going to die. God told him, you're forgiven. But the son is still going to die. There are consequences for things we do in this world, even though we're forgiven for those sins. There are consequences that still occur. So, David was a man after God's own heart. He loved God, but he was still a man. He still had weaknesses. Satan could still tempt him, and he would fall for that temptation. But he was forgiven. Okay, let's keep that in mind. David was forgiven. Let's talk about Solomon with a couple minutes we got left. Solomon, what did Solomon ask for from God? Wisdom. Did God give him wisdom? Absolutely, he gave him wisdom. Remember the story about the child and the dispute between the two women on whose child it was, and what Solomon came up with? Cut them in half. Why did he say cut them in half?
Because the true mother would not let that happen.
He knew the real mother would not let that happen. Okay? But Solomon was human. Solomon had many wives. Not all of them from the Israelites. And he allowed that to influence him. So Solomon allowed there to be idol worship. Right? And Solomon did a lot of things throughout his life. But at the end of his life, Solomon was sorry. And Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes, and this is Don's opinion. I think that was Ecclesiastes is Solomon's asking for forgiveness. And remember, Solomon says, all is vanity. Everything is vanity. Nothing matters except what? What matters? God. Worshiping God and keeping his commandments always. That's the only thing that matters. Nothing else in this world matters. So, we'll end there with Solomon. But just remember, Solomon was a man, he had weaknesses. I believe God forgave him for those weaknesses. And next week we're going to talk just a little bit more about some of the kings, just in general. And then we're going to talk about a couple of the apostles. And we'll talk a little bit about Saul. And then we're going to get into another promise that God made. Thank you for your participation in class. I hope it was better than it was last week, and look forward to seeing you all next week. I will not be here. I'm going to Winterfest, and Alan Davis is going to teach the class for me. So come in and give Alan your support next week, and I'll be back the following week. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Yep. You should have brought that up.